doing it live. We're doing it live. Welcome to another Outer Coincidence. I am Greg, and I'm joined by my buddy Robbie here. And tonight, the show is going to be all about natural law and how it relates to what is going on currently with this move towards technocracy. So, how's it going, Robbie?
Going good, man. How about yourself?
Pretty good. We've got like a weekly local meeting of just some. One of my buddies has a big farm here, pretty close, and he raises a lot of sheep and stuff. And he started doing this like Wednesday night kind of group gathering, and just a bunch of like some local people. It's like a guys meeting. It's like a Illuminamish meeting. But yeah, we did that last night and got some new goals. Got some new goals to work towards, specifically for my personal fitness. So instead of my personal fatness, working on some personal fitness.
I've got to do that myself. I've got plenty of personal fatness going on.
Oh man, it's a constant struggle. Specifically, like watching what you eat is the main thing I've been learning. Like you can work out every day, but if your diet is trash, you're still gonna gain weight.
Yeah, I've got a workout machine over there in the shipping container just stored away, and I got to get it back over here and get it set up. But the dang thing is so big. I was waiting until I had my shop area kind of set up, and now I keep finding excuses why I don't have room for it.
Yeah. What kind of equipment do you have? You have like a squat rack and bench or something like that?
I forget the name of it. Do what? Marcy. And it's a Marcy station.
Oh yeah. I remember seeing.
And it's got the butterflies on it and the pull downs.
Yeah,
and
it's actually a pretty nice setup.
Yeah, it's a pretty nice setup. I had my grandmother had a house in town, and my sister's daughter had lived there for a while and moved her boyfriend in, and they broke up, and he had this huge thing there. Anyway, when everybody got all cleared out and moved out, this thing was piled up underneath a bunch of stuff, and we were clearing out the house, and I said, well, dang, I'll take that thing home. Of course, it was missing parts, and I had to call Marcy and get some parts shipped to me, but anyway, so I don't have that much in it as far as money goes. Got a lot of elbow grease, but
yeah. But
I had it set up in the office area here at one time, but it just took up half the room.
Yeah.
And we just
I've just been getting by with 245 dumbbells and calisthenic workouts. So, and then every now and then I was going to the gym with a buddy of mine. But I actually prefer getting outside and attempting to do like some grounding, getting out in the sun and doing some like calisthenic workouts outside because of the benefits of the sunlight.
Well, I've been doing a lot of outside stuff over the last few days, out there trying to get the greenhouse back in order. And man, I'm just bad out of shape.
Yeah.
Of course, I've got that paralysis thing that I have to deal with. But the thing is that if I don't stay active, it stacks up on me. And so it's harder and harder for me to, especially with the age, to get back into the swing. So I'm having to force myself to do that. But I can definitely tell you that, I agree with you. Being outside doing stuff's a big benefit.
It's a bitch, but it's worth it, man.
Yeah.
I really feel like it's worth getting out and staying active, doing some kind of fitness a little bit every day, even if it's just walking. Walking's really good. Like walking's like probably one of the better things you can do if you can get enough steps in every day.
Yeah, I've got a 10-speed mountain bike, in the barn. I got to dig out. I need to start riding that thing again and burn some calories for sure.
Oh yeah. Mountain biking is really good. All right, so natural law. What is natural law? So the AI definition here, given to us by the Brave browser, natural law refers to a set of universal moral principles and values believed to be inherent in human nature and universally recognizable through human reason. It asserts that certain rights and ethical standards are derived from nature itself rather than being dictated by societal rules. This concept is distinct from positive law, as natural law is considered pre-existing and discovered through human reasoning and rational analysis. So, I think that's a pretty decent definition. I would say that natural law deals with an existing framework in this reality, and it is discoverable, like they're talking about. Much like we have, our for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction in physics. The same too deals with how we interact with each other in like social situations. Humans have free will, and you can make whatever choice that you desire. However, that choice is not free of consequence, and those consequences may have a lag time on them. So, I don't know. From your understanding of natural law, how do you understand natural law?
Well, it's like you said. It sounds good when you first hear about it. You say, "Well, that sounds relatively reasonable." The problem that we encounter is that you have a lot of unreasonable people who take unreasonable approaches to that philosophy. And so they look at it and say, well, according to their philosophy, they just can do pretty much anything that they want to do. And, consequences be damned. And so what they wind up with, this typically happens with people that have a good bit of political power or something, or a lot of financial power, because they don't typically suffer those consequences. So they have the ability through their associations and whatnot to bypass those things. And so they'll use the natural law thing as basically an excuse to do whatever the crap they want to do. And, if you had that equally distributed out, they would probably behave a lot differently.
I think that once you reach a certain level of wealth and power, or your perceived power over others, that I think that the people that believe that they're in control think that they have a certain way of revealing stuff to the public, and if you don't get it, then it's your own fault. I agree. That's the way. It's my understanding that that's the way they look at it. In other words, if they put something out in plain sight and you don't understand it, that's your fault, and it's tantamount to giving them permission to do whatever they are looking to do. So in the financial and political world, that means that they'll misconstrue things. They'll put things out, show you pictures of something with different language, or give you language with different pictures. And even though there is a small bit of truth embedded in what they're saying there, oftentimes it's twisted around
to have a different meaning than what it's representing on its face. And at least that's been my take on it over the last few years. So,
yeah, and so I was listening to this podcast. This podcast today relates to what we're talking about here tonight, where it was Kurt Metzger and Danny Polistruck on his podcast Low Value Mail, and play on the word mail, but he takes telephone calls. People can call into the show, so it's like, you know, receiving a mail letter, but also, you know, the word, or like the sex mail. But so anyway, they were talking about mind control and how there's a concept that all is mind, and that if you can control the mind, then you can control reality. So, well, once you've embedded yourself into someone's mind, that's why the schooling system is so important, is to get, you know, you as a parent to give your kid to the school, and that once that separation happens, then they can start to embed ideas into your child's mind. And once those ideas are embedded, then they have control over your perception of reality.
That's true. And, you know, we need a certain, when it comes to the education system, it's my opinion anyway, that we need a certain amount of stuff put in there that will help us structurally function as a society. However, there's the flip side of that coin too, where what I've noticed over the last couple of decades anyway, is that there's a concerted effort to use the natural law principle to flip that around so that they can embed information in to the educational process. This kind of goes back to Stalin, Lenin, and even Hitler, where they basically said, you know, if you'll give me a generation with your children, I'll change the world. And that's what they mean by that, because, and Mao as well. So they still practice this kind of stuff in North Korea and all of this, you know, where they really just pound that information in that they want to drive into the youth, because in a way, you're exactly correct. Perception is reality. If you can get a certain group of people to perceive things the way that you want them to, then you can create the reality around that line of reasoning or thought, which goes back into this esoteric line of reasoning too. If you, you know, I went down a rabbit hole several years ago with alchemy, and there's a very similar principle there. And you find this in quantum physics as well. The same principle that the mind creates the reality around you.
Yeah.
You know, so they're just putting it into practice. They've been using esotericism for the last God knows how many centuries now, as a philosophy and a means to direct quantum physics towards social engineering. And that's kind of where we're at today with what we're discussing, where you have this same group of people who is using natural law, the principles of natural law. They're using the education system. And now we're bringing in AI and technology into the mix so that they can accelerate those types of philosophies. And I guarantee you that none of the people sitting at the top of the pyramid have the rest of us plebes in mind, other than being in a subservient frame for them. But that's kind of off on another tangent, but it all plays together, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's really goes back a long time, and
Yeah, it really does.
I believe wherever the Egyptians got it from, it started in ancient Egypt, and
Maybe even before, but we don't have any direct reference or historical documentation to go back further than that. At least not
possibly
that I'm aware of.
possibly before, but you had all these Greek philosophers that were talking about, you had like Aristotle and Socrates and Plato.
Well, yeah, he was talking about, wasn't it Plato that was talking about the reality was the shadow on the wall?
Cave, the cave, yeah. Plato's cave.
Yeah.
But a lot of these guys were getting their ideas from Egypt, and were, had ties to the mystery schools in Egypt.
Oh, yeah.
And in Greece, there was also I think it was the Eleusinian mystery school.
I can't think of it off the top of my head. You talking about the Greeks?
The Eleusinian mystery school.
Okay.
Or Eleusinian mysteries. So
were those the ones that were founded off the principle of Euclid or Euclideanism, or what do they call that?
Here, I'll pull it up here. I believe there was a guy that wrote a book called The Immortality Key, and I believe that it was part of this Eleusinian mystery school, where they would partake in like a hallucinogen, possibly derived off of ergot.
Yeah, Eleusinian mysteries, cult of Demeter and Persephone. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, Persephone. Yeah,
Persephone.
Demeter and Persephone.
Boy, I just butchered that, didn't I?
Oh man, I said Persephone when I was younger, learning
Persephone.
about this, and then I
knew it when you said it. I said, "Oh God, yeah, I remember now that I just butchered the crap out of it."
Somebody corrected me on that. Like I was like, Persephone? Nah. So yeah, Immortality Key deals with the Eleusinian mystery school. So the book explores the question of whether the communion wine in early Christianity contained hallucinogens. He spent 12 years researching the topic. The author of the book discusses the Eleusinian mysteries and their connection to early Christianity. Marescu acknowledges the book, his theory is just speculative. So yes, this guy in this book of the Immortality Key, he's like kind of making a connection there with this possibility that there was a hallucinogen in a drink that they would take, and that was partially from ergot, which is like how they developed LSD.
It's LSD was derived from ergot back in the Middle Ages when they were harvesting wheat, and they would try to store it to keep the famine at bay. They had a lot of ergot in the wheat, and so they would make bread and things like that. And then you'd have these accounts of entire towns and everything having these quote unquote, demonic possessions during the night and things like that. But but you'd have entire villages that were, getting poisoned by the ergot. Some of them would die, and some of them would have massive hallucinogenic trips and things like that. Pretty wild stuff.
Yeah, and so what I believed, okay, it's spelled differently. Spelled with an E. I thought it was with a U. Let's see. It's a fungus that grows on rye. Produce hallucinogenic effects when it's consumed. And this is a speculation by this guy, but like this whole idea of the manipulation of the mind, or all is mind. These guys may have been playing with hallucinogens back in the day, and
I'm sure there's isn't there a long history of religious shamans and stuff, even to this day, that use hallucinogenic substances for their rituals.
Yes. Yeah. So, and it's a pretty potent tool. There, now people are discovering its benefits for helping people that have like traumas, like with PTSD with veterans, and how some of them can, in the right setting with a shaman, that they can be helpful for them using some of these hallucinogens to help them out. Like listen to a podcast where they were talking about specifically like ibogaine and like 5-ameo DMT, and but the other side of it as well is we were talking on the phone a little while back, is that there's a dark side to the hallucinogens as well, where you become more suggestible to hypnosis, and you just become more suggestible under some of these hallucinogens, and used improperly with somebody that wants to maybe implant something in your mind, it can become a tool for that as well. So,
well, you bringing something very interesting up. We're talking about transhumanism, and it come to my attention about 3 or 4 years ago that when they were developing AI and quantum computers and things along that nature, that many of the people in Silicon Valley who were developing these technologies were microdosing.
Yeah.
And, they just went on and on and on about the benefits of it, how it opened up their mind and all this stuff. And then you've got that, what is that stuff called? Scopolamine or whatever, that came to surface with the Diddy stuff. They were dosing people with this stuff, and they'd make them so suggestible they'd do anything.
Yeah, that's a weird one. Comes from like Colombia or something like that. And it's like a particular flower or something in Colombia, but I'll pull up some information on it here. Also known as hyoscine or devil's breath, the natural or synthetic produced tropane alkaloid and anti-cholinergic drug that is used as a medication to treat motion sickness and nauseous vomiting.
I was going down that rabbit hole about 6 months ago, and I came across this where they were talking about that huge numbers of people in Hollywood were on the scopolamine stuff or had been dosed with it multiple times in the past and had wound up compromising themselves as a result.
Yeah, so here, historically have been used as psychoactive drugs known as deliriants. Distinguish these deliriants are subclass of hallucinogen. Term was coined in the early 1980s to distinguish these drugs from psychedelics such as LSD, dissociatives such as ketamine, and due to the primary effect of causing delirium as opposed to more lucid and other stuff. Due to their anti-muscarinic induced hallucinogenic effects in higher doses in these contexts, its mind-altering effects have been utilized for recreational and occult purposes.
There you go.
hidden purposes.
Yeah.
Say occult, it's basically another word for hidden.
That's my understanding, that the stuff that's being used in the context of the people who have been compromised was something that was developed and derived by a certain letter intelligence agency for purposes of espionage. And so, yeah, the rabbit hole goes deep.
Yeah, it's that was one of the things that they were talking about in this podcast, as well as that the whole spycraft thing, and the history of all that stuff, goes way back on all the techniques for spycraft and what you can do to gain an advantage over your opponent in intelligence. So yeah, let me pull that up real quick. I'll show you.
I didn't want to. I was going to say we'll try not to get off on too much of a tangent, but if you really look at what's going on in this space of this stuff that we're talking about, a lot of this stuff is interlinked. I mean, it's just like this. So you just about can't go deep into one subject without finding it linking back over to these others.
Oh yeah. So you remember the guy that was, I don't know if you followed when Kanye West was kind of blowing up the internet for a little while there, but he had a trainer, a Canadian guy, Harley Pasternak, and that they believe that he had connections with intelligence, and they get into that a little bit right here. So I'm gonna play just a little bit of this part.
Okay.
Normal thing that you've seen your whole life.
Right.
It's a normal thing. It's not. It's
like
mundane.
It's a thing that everyone is essentially susceptible to. It's just the degree to which it's pushed on you.
If you become aware of it, you can become less susceptible by a lot, as a matter of fact. And people are becoming aware of it, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
It doesn't work forever.
I think that goes with like the chaining realities together, like you were mentioning too. I feel like.
Yeah, well, I mean,
that's part of like the cultural
go, a separate universe.
Brainwashing.
Are there other dimensions? Yeah. Their perception, like people are in their bubble. You hear that term? Yeah. Oh, he's in this bubble. That's a separate reality. That's what that is. It's completely dictated by consciousness. If I have Edward Bernays skills of programming, you got a mommy, left, right brain, mommy and daddy, and your subconscious is a kid. And then my goal as your controller is to get mommy and daddy out of the house and stick my dick in your subconscious. That's what kindergarten's for. So most people live in a single parent skull where they're overly masculine or feminine, right? They never want you balanced.
Right.
They always want you to be overly into one or the other, but it's like 3D glasses, a red and a blue lens to form the image. You need both sides of your brain. It can't just be left brain shit, and it can't just be right brain new age horse shit. You need to combine it thoughtfully
Yin and
then
yang,
at it. And what'd you say?
like a yin and yang kind of deal.
Yeah, right. And then,
Yeah.
but the whole goal, so that way you're getting like the full 5D effect that you should be getting. Most people are not because I'm only a secular materialist. Well, you're using half your brain, genius. Yep.
Good point. Nick, I gotta let you go.
Well, okay, that part didn't get into the Harley Pasternak situation, but it was talking about specifically what, the all is mind, and if you're not aware of these specific techniques and propaganda and things like that, your control of your perception, then you're going to be subjected to what they're pushing on you.
Yeah, that's what I found as well. So I mean, and it's amazing how just being aware, how much more you can see things around you going on, and you don't just fall into the trap. It's kind of like, they got all this mess going on with defunding and taking down the Department of Education, the federal Department of Education. And you got, the certain side of the aisle is losing their mind over it. Well, that's the side of the aisle that's for the last 20 years have been using that as a vehicle to put the information in to the school system. They don't care about the education. They care about controlling the information that is used to educate. And
right.
So, that the fact that the test scores are low and that people are graduating college and can't do 6th grade math, so what? They don't care about that. What they care about is putting a belief system into a certain population or group of people. And that's what they care about. And so it's another mechanism that has been utilized for the last couple of decades to forward this agenda that we're talking about, because you have a group of people sitting on high over here somewhere who desire to set up a technocracy, a modern day aristocracy where all the technology and all the wealth is at the top with them and everybody else is down at the bottom groveling for whatever resource they can get. And the use of AI and transhumanism is another vehicle for them to get there. And they've got a lot of people bamboozled, I think, thinking that this transhumanism thing is going to be this big, wonderful thing that's going to save humanity. And I think it's going to be the other way around. I think it may be in the short term, it'll be used that way. But once it's established, make no mistake, they're going to come in there and they're going to tighten their grip on it. And it goes back to that natural law, because they've been putting it out right in front of us the whole time. Mm-hmm. And, we're looking at it straight in the face, but because, like this guy said, we live in our own bubble. And this is where the media thing comes in too. All the hoopla going on about the modern legacy media. It's, you go back and look at Operation Mockingbird and all that. It's a program designed to create reality by structuring society through information.
Yeah.
And that sounds totally foreign to a lot of people. They listen to me say them words and they'll go, "You have lost your mind." But when you go look at the reality of it, it's going on every day.
Right. Well, let me see if I can pull up an example of that. Truth Stream Media on Twitter. Aaron and Melissa Dykes recently did a good little compilation of all these people doing the mockingbird thing. All these.
It's actually comical when you actually see it, and when you wake up to it and you see it, it's just like, really? How could I not notice this before?
Yeah, all these politicians, even travelers going to China, are all doing this kind of same script thing. And, it's like one of the techniques is to, keep repeating something and get everybody to believe it.
Oh, well, it was Goebbels, wasn't it Goebbels that said, and if you tell a lie, you tell it big and tell it often, and people will believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And, and as a matter of fact, the bigger the lie, the more they are to believe it.
Right.
According to him. And I think we're seeing that play out.
Oh, yeah. Let me see. Let's see if I can find their little thing here. Said so many posts lately. Let me see. I can pull up one example here of these traveling channels, which I have been following. I like to watch some of these guys that go and travel to different countries and, kind of check out their adventures. But one of them in particular, where these folks went to China and they're all like talking about how great China is. Let me pull it up here.
Yeah, you showed that one with a guy who couldn't get his phone to pull his money up so he could travel.
Yeah.
It's ground floor. It's ground floor.
On the ground.
Ground level.
The ground floor.
On the ground level.
The ground floor level.
Ground.
On the ground floor.
Ground level.
On the ground floor.
First floor.
First floor.
Ground
Ground
level.
floor.
Ground.
You'd be forgiven for thinking that we were on terra firma. However,
We are actually.
we are in fact.
But you actually,
I'm actually.
While actually
is actually, you're actually,
But actually. We're actually.
you're on the 22nd floor of a building.
on the 22nd floor.
22 stories up.
20 stories above the ground.
You're on the 20th floor.
Is that we are 22 floors up.
We are on the 22nd floor right now.
That's a 22nd floor.
Yep. 22 floors up.
You're at 22nd. On the 22nd floor. On the 22nd floor.
And down here, there's 22 floors down the side of this building. Oh my days, check that out.
22nd floor.
So, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is you take people with a variety audience, and you repeat the same thing over and over and over to across a wide spectrum of different audiences, and the philosophy is that creates a perceptive reality in a larger group of people, and the more you can do that, the more influence over the reality you'll have.
Yeah, these guys are all traveling to the same place, so,
Yeah.
and
Amazing.
they're like, wanting to comment that, hey, it looks like I'm on the street, but I'm actually up on the 22nd floor here. But it's funny that they're all, like all these channels are like all saying similar things. And it comes after all these Democrats gave this little TikTok. They were all doing these TikToks that were all the same. It was like they were all reading off the same script, and they probably were. They were probably all reading off somebody gave them a script to read and said, hey, it'd be great if you put out this little TikTok saying this stuff.
No way, man. Come on. We know it's all coincidence, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you have 100 different news anchors say the exact same thing in the exact sequential order. It's total coincidence. I mean,
it can't be anything, but
it can't be anything else but that, right?
sheer and utter coincidence.
There's no way any of it's coordinated.
No way. No way.
Uh,
No way.
amazingly, after all we've been through, there's still a group of people that will refuse to accept that.
Well,
You know,
nobody is going to look at the information until they're ready. So
that's right.
when, I was there, I was, towing the line of like when 9/11 happened. I was still in high school, I think, when 9/11 happened. And, they come out and tell you this one story. It was a terrorist attack, and they showed you the planes that hit the World Trade Center buildings, but not the plane that hit the Pentagon, not the way the World Trade Center building 7 came down. Most people don't even know to this day that there was a third building that went down,
And it's remarkable how many records were lost that were in that building.
Yeah.
Classified records. It's really, really quite amazing.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I was in the same category. It took me probably 4 years afterwards to start looking at things with a discerning eye. And it was only after certain things had started happening to me when I realized that the system was skewed not to be in my favor. It was, and despite whatever I said or thought, it was irrelevant compared to what they were doing out there, So, yeah, I had to take some hard knocks to wake up.
Yeah, me too, man. It was, I think when, like a lot of people, it might take like some type of event to kind of get you to see all this stuff. But, if you hear information from certain people, like, that might stick in the back of your mind. And I've heard Mark Passia talk about how, the truth is belligerent and it wages war on all forms of deception and mind control. Like those things that you've told somebody, that may stick like a pin in the back of their mind and like agitate them just enough so that like if something happens to them and the world it does not play out the way that they thought it does, that little pin in their mind, that little seed that you planted, may come to fruition at a certain point and then may go deeper. But
well, fortunately, for me anyway, I'm surrounded by a wonderful group of people that, have seen some of the same things. And so I don't have to fight, my family on everything like some people do, which is really great.
Yeah. So, yeah, planting the seeds, seeing how things are stacking up and how we can navigate into the future. But yeah, you sent this one article about how Stalinism is transhumanism, and I started to read a little bit about this while we were talking here a second ago, and
if you dig into Trotsky and what were known as the Trotskyites back at the turn of the century, what you'll discover is that there's a group of old world money elites out of New York and London who had a philosophical point of view which later became communism and Nazism. They actually funded it and put all the pieces in motion to create it as a vehicle for their ideological society, which they envision themselves as emerging on top of. So they wanted to bring back this. When you get into the old world money, the aristocracy of the old world, they were fabulously rich and wealthy. And so when you started having countries that became more democratic, you started having a lot of wealth being generated in the private sector. And this group of people absolutely despise that. They don't believe that anybody other than them should have the ability to do that. And so this is a vehicle that they've created to use the modern mechanisms of modern society to beat down democracy so that they can bring back aristocracy. And it's the transhumanist movement is a part of that.
So in here, it's talking about Lenin specifically, saying, take the father of the Russian Revolution, Lenin. The common understanding of Lenin in the past was to see him as a revolutionary pragmatist who engaged in widespread terror and advocated dictatorship largely as a consequence of the precarious situation of the revolution and in the atmosphere of danger and bloodshed found in the Russian Civil War. In fact, the historical record presented in the archives now makes clear that many of the abhorrent features of state communism in Russia, once associated with Stalin, in fact originated under Lenin. Obscenities such as the forerunner to the KGB, the Cheka, or the Soviet system of concentration camps, Solzhenitsyn's Gulag Archipelago, far from seeing them as temporary expedients in precarious situation of the revolution and the atmosphere of danger and bloodshed found in the Russian Civil War, Lenin saw these innovations as a permanent feature of Marx's dictatorship of the proletariat, which Lenin had reimagined as the permanent rule of a revolutionary technocratic elite.
Right. And then so, if you, like I said, if you go back and you look at the history of that, these revolutions were funded by these elite bankers and elite money people from the West.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that we had, our society as a whole supporting it. As a matter of fact, they didn't even know about it mostly. And we sure didn't have our open support of the government of it at that time. But you did have, and it even went on into World War II, when you had these same bankers were funding both sides of the war. And, if you really dig into history, you see these patterns that come back again and again, and it's usually the same players.
Yeah, I mean, what was it? The Rothschild family is involved in so many of these activities because when governments get into wars, they need money to supply their troops and feed their troops, and you're not really going to win a war or wage a war if you can't feed your soldiers or provide them supplies and materials and uniforms, boots and weapons and all that kind of stuff. So,
and that's how we got to where we are now, because you have these banking elite institutions who have loaned out money to these countries for these types of purposes, for war purposes, and the puppet or whoever's in charge of the country will sign over huge parts of the infrastructure as collateral. And so the winner gets the spoils of the war, and they pay their debt back. The loser loses their infrastructure and all of their mineral rights and things like that go to the banking elite, which then turn around and sub it out to the winners of the war. And that's actually happening now in Ukraine.
Trump wanted to make that deal with Zelensky that they would provide them aid, I guess, for securing some mineral rights or something in Ukraine or something like that.
He's trying to put some kind of financial thing on it in order to get them to do the ceasefire thing. But Trump's not the beneficiary of any of that. It's going to be these. It's going to be the international bankers who facilitated the money to fund the war. Those are the ones who have their self as a beneficiary on the dotted line there for the collateralization of the nation. So even if he got this thing pushed through, he's going to then turn around and he's going to face unilateral legal action from NATO, the United Nations, Europe as a whole, or the EU, I mean, and the top 2 or 3 international banking entities. They're gonna come at him with legal action because they're gonna say, no, wait a minute, that belongs to us. So yeah, it's been going on forever, and it goes on to this day.
Yeah, one of the books, I don't know how, I guess I came across this as a podcast or a video I was watching and went and got the book. But I read the book from John Perkins, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, where he talks specifically about that. He believed that he was going into countries to do economic projections of the countries, and was basically a contractor for the IMF and the World Bank to go in and talk to their leaders to offer them a sum of money to do to bring in our construction contractors, American contractors, to exploit some type of resource they had. And if they didn't take the money, then they would, attempt to do some kind of like propaganda campaign against the leader to get him overthrown. And if that didn't work, then they'd send in the jackals, is what he described.
Yeah.
But yeah, he realized that he was, basically working for the IMF and the World Bank to get countries in debt to them and exploit their stuff and send their money back to, all these contractors and stuff, and get the country in debt so they have leverage over them.
Yeah, he's taking the resources and the infrastructure of the country itself and converting it over to a monetized ledger that the bank could then utilize to increase their wealth. And they could use that then to have political leverage over more territory, which gave them increasingly more collateralized wealth. So, it's a mess. But this is the same group of people that we're talking about here that are pushing for the transhumanist movement, because what they would like to do is they would like to have themselves with extended life expectancy, and have themselves with all the technology and electricity and vehicles and airplanes and military hardware, while everybody else lives in extremely rural conditions, almost like a what's the movie where Mockingbird and Mockingjay, the
Hunger Games.
Hunger Games, yeah. So the rest of the world lives in a Hunger Games society where you're subservient to a small group of technocratic aristocracy. And I know I keep harping on that, but that's what this is.
Oh yeah.
And we're just exploring. We're just barely touching around the peripheral of the mechanisms that they've been using in the past. But if you're still in the mindset that it's left versus right, or Russia versus Europe, or NATO versus China, this, that, and other, you're living in the paradigm they want you to see it through, the lens they want you to see it through.
Yeah, it's been a lot. It has been a lot of talk, and there are some people in the alternative media talking about how, let's stop getting distracted by, the left-right thing, and let's see that this, bigger picture is happening in the background, which is, a technology kind of takeover, rule through a technocracy.
Yeah, and all this other stuff is distraction.
Yeah, that's the conclusion that I'm looking at right now, and it's like all of the the AI, the push for all the artificial intelligence, and the companies making huge investments in artificial intelligence and having your own little all the like little AIs that are on your smartphones and stuff now. Kind of tailoring your perceptions, kind of like.
You sent me the thing the other day. It was yesterday or today, where they got the toilet cameras going, because now they're not just profiling your facial recognition. They're profiling your rear end as well.
Yeah.
And, I mean, really, seriously, we have to get it down to where they not only want your DNA profile, but they want to profile your bunghole as well. And
watch out at the airport bathrooms if you're going.
Yeah, that's right. You're gonna have a CIA guy up there like Jason Bourne. Like I said, we got him, sir. We got a positive ID on his bunghole. But I mean, what?
Yeah,
what
smart toilets.
So
the smart toilets, they want to sell them as like, okay, we can do like a pre-screening for your health and all this stuff, but like, who wants a camera pointed at you?
I just have a question.
Your genitals, like,
how is a camera taking a picture of your tea bag going to give them any information about your health?
I don't know, but
hey, you're a little overweight there, buddy. Yeah, I get it. Yeah,
somebody's storing a database.
Yeah, your turd is a little too brown.
Yeah. So,
what kind of corn did you eat yesterday, sir?
Yeah, anal fingerprinting, I think, was part of that article. Everyone has a unique anal fingerprint, and so you can be identified through your anal fingerprint. So that's the technology.
Well, I mean, look, yeah, if they're proposing that, that they've seriously thought about it at some point, but it just goes to show you the level of control they're thinking about. I mean, you used I tell you something it could be used for, especially when they get into the climate stuff. They would come out and say, well, we identified you through your rear end, and you used 4 sheets of toilet paper too much.
Yeah.
And because of that, your carbon footprint is this, and your social score went down, and you've got, I mean, it's just another mechanism of control.
Yeah. Well, they always sell it right through like it's gonna help you. You're not gonna have to go see your doctor. I guess it can like give you a pre-screening for some kind of health problem or something like that. But yeah, it's getting pretty crazy about how much information.
Hold on, go back up. Did that say it's taking stool and urine samples?
Yeah, stool samples recorded on video and analyzed by algorithms that identify abnormal stool consistencies. So yes,
same thing with urine. If it's doing stool, it's doing urine. So what they're doing there is they're monitoring your chemical composition of your diet and your uptake. And so this way, when they go to start controlling diet, they can determine whether or not you're following the diet.
Yeah, maybe you ate too much meat there, buddy.
Oh yeah, well if meat's illegal, then they can say, well, you don't have enough bug protein. You're doing something illegal. You'll get swatted because the butthole camera said that you were eating something you shouldn't have been eating.
Yeah,
I'm serious.
But everybody.
It sounds stupid, but I mean,
there'll be a lot of people that think it's cool. Like,
yeah.
Hey,
man, this is great.
This is great. My doctor can get information from my butthole camera on my toilet.
My doctor can tell right off the bat, what my blood sugar is. Did I drink a beer last night?
Well, you won't even have the doctor. You'll have your AI doctor that you don't even need.
Well, I mean, it would be literally
physical doctor anymore.
Literally, you'd have an AI doctor algorithm and say, obviously, you're not following your doctor's advice. We're cutting your money off, or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the only reason I could see for something like that. Let's see, what do we got? Okay, I've got about 10 or 15 minutes at the max, and I'm going to have to ditch my camera. So,
well, let's see if we got another story we can cover a little bit here. I did want to bring up another book if people might be interested. I read this one several years ago, but it was by author James True, and he talked about some of the things that we were talking about here tonight, called Blueprints of Mind Control, written by James True. And he kind of has a little bit of a prose, asking questions in this book, and but goes into like a lot of the types of issues of mind control. So I thought it was a really good read. So if people might want to check that out, I thought that was a good book talking about mind control stuff. But anything else that we should talk about?
Well, you can look up, there's a kind of a documentary movie out there called State of Mind.
Oh, yes. State of Mind. Yes.
It's from 2013, and I don't know if Google will pull it up or not, but on DuckDuckGo, you can pull it up, and it's about 4 or 5 down because it's not at the top, but it's State of Mind, The Psychology of Control, directed by James Lane. And,
that was, I think Richard Grove helped to produce that documentary.
Yeah, that's a good one to watch if you want to try to get a primer for what, they go into the birth of modern psychology and how it's used in structural societal engineering, which is pretty good stuff.
Yeah, it's a definite watch that people should check out.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't get super deep, but it's a real good primer. I mean, it's something that'll open your eyes if you're not privy to this kind of thing.
Yeah, Richard Grove is one of the guys that was helped on that one. So cool, man. Yeah, you want to close it out here for tonight?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think I've got to get off of here in just a minute. So, but yeah, I mean, we covered a little bit of ground. Still, the subject is so broad and deep that you can bring up so many different facets of the same thing. And, you know, I would encourage anybody to go out and look up the history of all these subjects. And, you know, as I said, it took a lot of hard knocks to wake me up to what was going on. And then it took after that a number of years for me to start to see how some of the pieces fit together. And so what I was talking about here tonight is probably 20 years of just reading and seeing documentaries and various different subjects, everything from technology to psychology to politics to health. And you start to see these patterns start to emerge. You know, I'm kind of a pattern person. I recognize patterns. And so when you start to see these patterns over and over and over, and then you start going back and cross-referencing, you say, holy cow, this stuff is linked, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, Richard Grove, I follow his podcast, Grand Theft World Podcast, and he has this cool thing called a brain map. And it's a model where you can start like taking associations and start linking them together. You know, like the conspiracy theory meme or whatever, where he's got all these lines drawn everywhere, and newspaper clippings and people's photos and stuff. But yeah, like he's got this whole model built to where, you know, you start talking about one thing and one person or something like that, and it's got its associations with all these, you know, different companies or different foundations or movements or anything like that has happened. And once you start to see those connections, then you see you can kind of see the bigger picture emerge for sure.
I'll tell you something as a closing out here right quick that I ran across today or yesterday, as a matter of fact. If you have any doubts that the political side of the climate agenda is anything more than just governmental control, go look at what's going on with the tractor company JCB. They have just announced a hydrogen-powered engine that rivals diesel for their equipment. And they're getting zero traction. They can't get any advertising or anything out of it.
Oh, really?
And, you know, it's 100% clean. It doesn't produce any CO2. There's no byproduct, you know, and all of this stuff. And it's like there's zero political interest. There's zero economic interest. So, you know, if you, and this, I mean,
they want you running on diesel with that DEF system in there that screws up.
Well, no, it's not that they want to, you know, they scream that we got to get rid of fossil fuels, but they don't want to offer any solutions. And then when you come up with a solution, it's crickets.
Yeah.
And so that tells you all you need to know. They really aren't concerned about solutions. They just want to get rid of the infrastructure so that they can control what assets they have. So,
right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's about creating an artificial scarcity. There's technologies that, you know, could be implemented that, you know, have the ability to create a lot of abundance, but it's the scarcity.
And I'm sure in one of these maybe we can dive over into some of the nuts and bolts and some of that. But that's linked to this whole subject as well, because without the scarcity, you can't get it to the level that they want to get it to.
Right.
And so anyway, well, I gotta get off here, and
it could all be coincidence.
Well, there's definitely 99.99999% coincidence on everything. There is no such thing as any kind of coordinated effort on anything, especially when it comes to subject matters like this.
Yeah.
So I just want to clear it up for everybody that might think otherwise.
Yep.
It's all coincidence.
Can't be anything but sheer and utter coincidence.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've literally seen it before where you might have a string of 40 or 50 sequential coincidences that had to happen exactly in that order. But be assured, it's all coincidence.
All right, Robbie, where can people find you and support you? What else stuff you got going on?
Well, right now I'm trying to get the aquaponics back up and going. So soon I'll have the DIY aquaponic thing back up. Right now, if you want to get a hold of me, you can go to 3dcatbuilder.com and email me through that. So,
all right.
So anyway.
Cool.
But yeah, have a good one, man, and I appreciate it.
All right, Robbie, have a good night. Appreciate you coming on and
all right, you too, man.
Talking coincidence with me.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again.
All right. See you.
All right, later. Bye.